Ruth Okoye stood behind the big wooden doors of New Hope Baptist Church, holding her bouquet so tight her fingers were almost white. Her wedding dress was clean and bright. Her veil rested gently on her face. Her heart was beating fast, the kind of beat that feels like joy and fear holding hands. She kept smiling slightly, even though her stomach was doing somehow. Today was her day. Inside the church, everything was full, like full. People were dressed like it was Christmas service. Women in colorful head tie and shiny lace, men in suits, some even wearing sunglasses inside like celebrities, children sitting restlessly but quiet because their mothers were pinching them small. Phones were already out, not even hiding. Some people were recording the flowers, some were recording the aisle, some were doing selfie videos like, "Guys, we are live at Ruth Okoye's wedding, this is big." Ruth heard it all from behind the door, and it made her laugh and shake at the same time. Auntie Juliana Carter, her loud, dramatic auntie, was moving up and down like a police patrol. Auntie Juliana's gel was standing like a crown. Her lipstick was sharp, her eyes were even sharper. "Ruth," she called softly but strongly, like she wanted to whisper her, but her spirit refused. Ruth turned. Auntie Juliana held her cheeks with both hands. "My baby, you are fine like money," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "See as you feel fresh. Today you will not cry, oh, God forbid." Ruth smiled. "Auntie, I won't cry." Auntie Juliana nodded hard like she was signing agreement. "Good. Because if anybody tries nonsense today, I will scatter the whole program. I don't care if it is the choir." Ruth laughed, nervous laughter. "Auntie, please." But even with the joking, Ruth's eyes kept shifting like her mind was checking something every second. Victor Ajayi, her groom, the man she was about to marry. Victor was the kind of man people liked to look at. Clean haircut, nice smile, always looking neat and expensive, even when he wore simple clothes. He was ambitious, too, the type that talked about future like it was something he already held in his pocket. He had promised her. He had looked into her eyes last night and said, "Tomorrow is our beginning." So Ruth believed him. Pastor Emmanuel was near the altar already, adjusting his microphone and clearing his throat like a man preparing for battle. He was a gentle pastor, but today his eyes were moving around more than usual. Maybe because weddings in Nigeria can turn into a prayer point very fast. He glanced at his watch. Then he looked toward the side door. Ruth couldn't see his face clearly, but she felt something shift in the air, like a small, cold wind passed through. Auntie Juliana noticed, too. She leaned toward one of the bridesmaids and hissed, "Where is Victor? Don't tell me this boy is doing African time on wedding day." The bridesmaid forced a laugh. Maybe he's just settling. Ruth swallowed. She told herself the same thing. Maybe he's just settling. Maybe he's coming. The organ music started softly, like the church was ready to begin. Ruth breathed in and out. This was it. This was her dream. This was the moment she had waited for. She held her bouquet tighter. Her lips moved in a silent prayer. "God, please, let today be good." 10 minutes passed. Nothing. The soft music in the church started sounding awkward now, like it was playing for nobody. Ruth was still behind the door, still smiling small, but her smile was beginning to shake at the corners. Auntie Juliana was now standing with her hands on her waist. "Where is this boy?" she muttered. Pastor Emmanuel checked his watch again. This time, he sighed. The whispering inside the church began. At first it was small. Then it grew. People were turning their necks. Some were standing to peep. Phones that were meant to record the bride now started recording the empty front. Ruth's chest started tightening. She tried to keep her face calm, but her eyes were starting to look wet. 20 minutes. Still nothing. Auntie Juliana walked to the side and started calling somebody. "Hello, where are you people? Please, where is Victor Ajayi? Is he on his way or what?" She listened. Her face changed. She stepped away like she didn't want Ruth to hear. But Ruth heard her voice crack slightly. Ruth's heart jumped. She moved closer. "Auntie, what is it?" Auntie Juliana turned quickly. Nothing, he's coming. But her eyes were lying. Ruth looked past her and saw Victor's mother standing near the front row. Mrs. Ajayi. The woman's hands were shaking as she held her phone. Then the message entered again, like something just landed on her screen. Mrs. Ajayi's mouth opened. Her hand flew to her lips. She looked like somebody who'd just seen death. Ruth's blood turned cold. She stepped forward, forgetting everything. Ma, Mrs. Ajayi? The older woman looked at her. And pity entered her eyes. That kind of pity that can destroy a person. Ruth's voice came out thin. What did he say? Mrs. Ajayi swallowed hard. Her shoulders dropped. Then she whispered, almost like she didn't want the words to live. My daughter, Victor is not coming. Ruth froze. For 1 second, she didn't breathe. It felt like the whole church tilted, like somebody removed the ground under her feet. What? Ruth whispered. Mrs. Ajayi's eyes filled with tears. He said he can't do it. He said he's not ready. Ruth's bouquet slipped from her hand and hit the floor gently. But the sound was loud in her head. The church erupted into noise. People gasped. Somebody shouted, "Ha!" Somebody else said, "Jesus!" Ruth's knees suddenly became weak like rubber. She tried to hold herself. She couldn't. She fell. Right there in her wedding dress, her veil slid down. Her body shook with shock first, then the crying came like a flood. Not small crying, the kind of crying that blocks your throat. Ruth held her chest, trying to breathe, trying to understand, trying to wake up from what felt like a bad dream. But it was real. Victor had left her, on her wedding day, in front of everybody. Auntie Juliana screamed like thunder. "En? Victor did what?" Pastor Emmanuel stepped forward, his face pale. People were already raising their phones higher. Ruth was on the floor, crying like her heart was breaking in her hands. And she couldn't stop it. Ruth was still on the floor. Her wedding dress spread around her like a white river. Her veil had slid to the side. Tears were rolling down her face like rain that refused to stop. Her chest was rising and falling like she was fighting to breathe. Inside the church, people did not even know how to behave again. At first there was silence. Then it broke. Like glass. Ah, God forbid. Is it true? He didn't come. He left her just like that? People stood up, necks turned, mouths opened. And phones went higher. Some people were recording Ruth's tears like it was Nollywood. Some people were doing whisper video. Guys, this wedding scatteroo. The groom didn't show. See the bride on the floor? Ruth heard it. Even with her crying, she heard it. Every tiny word was entering her body like needle. Pity was flying around the church like smoke, and gossip too. One woman covered her mouth and said, "Chai, shame. This is wickedness." Another one hissed quietly, Maybe she did something. Men don't just run." That one entered Ruth's heart like a slap. She tried to stand, but her body refused. It was like her bones had turned to sand. She held her chest and cried harder, not because she wanted to perform, but because something inside her was tearing. Auntie Juliana Carter was no longer doing aunt again. She became full lion. She marched down the aisle like a soldier and pointed toward the entrance. "Somebody stop him!" she shouted. People looked confused. "Stop who?" "Victor! Somebody stop Victor! That foolish boy. He will not disgrace my niece and walk away like a thief." She turned to Victor's mother, eyes red. "Madam, you people planned this thing, Abi?" Mrs. Ajayi shook her head quickly, crying too. "No, I swear, I didn't know." But Auntie Juliana was not hearing anything. She faced the congregation. "This is wickedness. This is evil. In this kind of church. On this kind of altar." Pastor Emmanuel stood near the altar like a man who suddenly forgot all his Bible verses. His mouth opened, closed. He looked at Ruth, then looked at the crowd, then looked at the empty place where Victor should have stood. He whispered, "Jesus." Ruth tried to lift her head. All she saw was faces. Faces looking at her. Some with pity, some with excitement, some with judgment. And she felt naked, not her body, her soul. Like everybody could see every hope she ever carried. She cried her chest would break. Her hands were trembling. Her lips were shaking. And in that moment, Ruth wasn't even thinking about Victor again. She was thinking about one thing. How will I ever stand up from this shame? As the noise continued, something small happened on the side. Something most people would normally ignore. Near the back corner of the church, close to the entrance, there was a man with a broom. Ben Okoye. Everybody in that church knew him not properly, but by sight. He was the quiet cleaner, the one that swept every morning before service, the one who arranged chairs sometimes, the one that people walked past like he was part of the wall. Some even called him that beggar, because when service ended, he would sit quietly outside and stretch his hand for small change. He never fought anybody, never begged with noise, just silent, like a shadow. Today, Ben had been sweeping too. He had been doing his normal work, head down, minding his business. But when Ruth fell and started crying, Ben's sweeping slowed. His eyes lifted. He watched. Not like those people watching for entertainment. He watched Lasha could feel it, like the pain was touching him too. Then suddenly, Ben stopped. He dropped the broom. The broom fell gently on the floor. Tap. Some people noticed. Ern? Who is that? Is that not cleaner? Ben stepped forward. One step. Then another. The church was still noisy, but as people saw him moving, the noise started to reduce, slowly, because it was strange. A cleaner walking toward the altar during a wedding scandal. People started whispering again. What is he doing? Why is cleaner coming to the altar? Maybe he wants to pray for her. No, see as he's walking like he has purpose. Someone laughed softly. Maybe he wants to collect offerings too. But Ben did not look left or right. His face was calm. Not smiling, not angry, just steady. He walked down the aisle slowly. His clothes were simple and worn, clean but old. His slippers marred a small sound on the floor as he moved. Ruth was still on the floor crying, but she sensed movement and lifted her head a little. Through her tears, she saw a man approaching. Not Victor, not Pastor Emmanuel, not Auntie Juliana, a man she had seen before but never really seen. Ben Okoye, the quiet cleaner everybody ignored. He kept walking, and the whole church watched him like they didn't even know what to expect anymore. Because in that moment, the wedding had already died, so nobody knew what could rise from the ashes. Ben reached the front. He didn't rush. He didn't act like he was performing. He just walked like a man who had already made up his mind. Ruth was still on the floor, her eyes swollen, her face wet, her breath scattered. Auntie Juliana was still shouting somewhere behind, but her voice began to fade because people were now focusing on Ben. Pastor Emmanuel's hand was still on his Bible, but he looked like he forgot what page he opened. Ben stopped right in front of Ruth. Not beside her, not behind her. Not like somebody coming to help her up quickly and running away. He stood in front of her like he was shielding her from the whole church. The silence was growing. Even the people holding phones slowed down, because something about the way Ben stood made people uncomfortable. Then Ben did the thing nobody expected. He bent slowly, and he went down on one knee, right there, right in front of Ruth, right at the altar. Exactly where the groom was supposed to stand. A sound escaped the church like one big breath. Ah, Jesus. Huh? Cleaner. Auntie Juliana's mouth opened and refused to close. Some people even stood up fully, like they wanted to see well. Ruth blinked through tears, thinking maybe her eyes were deceiving her. Ben Okoye, kneeling? For her own groom ran away, but the cleaner was kneeling. Ben lifted his face and looked at her. His eyes were calm. Not pity, not mockery, not madness. Just steady, like water that doesn't shake even when the wind is loud. Ruth's throat tightened. She couldn't even speak. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. The whole church froze like somebody pressed pause. Phones stayed up, but even the people recording were now confused. Because this was no longer gossip. This was something else. Ben's voice came out low and clear. Not shouting, not begging, not shaking. Ruth. Ruth's heart jumped at the way he said her name, like he knew her pain, like he was calling her back from the place she had fallen. Then he said it. Very simple, very direct. Ruth, if he won't marry you, I will. For 1 second, the church didn't even breathe. Then chaos burst out again. What? Get up. This is madness. Somebody stop this nonsense. Cleaner, shift. Are you okay? A man even shouted from the side, this is not your place. Auntie Juliana moved like she wanted to run forward. God forbid, Ruth, no, stand up. Don't let this poor man add another disgrace. But Ben did not move. He remained on one knee. Like the shouting was wind, and he was a tree with deep roots. Ruth stared at him. Her brain was not catching up. She was confused. Everything inside her was confused. Her groom left. Her life scattered. Now a cleaner she barely knew was proposing to her in front of everybody. Why? Why would he do that? Was he trying to use her shame? Was it pity? Was it attention? Was it some kind of joke? Ruth's voice finally came out, small and broken. Why? Why are you doing this? Ben's eyes did not flinch. He spoke softly, but every word landed heavy. Because you should not leave this church today feeling unchosen. Ruth's tears fell again, but different this time. Not only pain, something like shock. Ben continued, still kneeling. You came here to be loved, not to be displayed and thrown away. Ruth shook her head slowly, like she couldn't accept what she was hearing. But I don't even know you. Ben nodded once, calm. You don't have to know me, not today. He lifted his hand slightly, not touching her, not forcing anything, just offering. I just don't want you to stand up from this floor and walk out like you are nothing, like you are abandoned, like you are shame. Ruth's chest rose sharply. Her eyes moved around the church. All those faces, all those phones, all that judgment. And in front of her, one man was not laughing, not gossiping, not recording, just staying. Ruth swallowed hard, still confused, still scared, still wondering what kind of man steps forward in another man's disaster and offers himself as cover. She looked at Ben again, voice trembling. But why me? Why now? And Ben stayed kneeling, waiting, like he was ready to answer, but he would not rush her heart. Ben stayed on one knee, still looking up at Ruth like he was waiting for her answer, not forcing it. Ruth's lips parted again. The question was still sitting on her tongue. Why me? Why now? But before Ben could speak, bang! The church doors swung open hard. Everybody turned. Even the phones tilted toward the entrance like camera people in Nollywood. A tall, elderly man stepped in slowly, dressed in a clean native attire that screamed class without shouting. His cap sat firm on his head. His walking stick tapped the floor once, kappa, like punctuation. The air in the church changed immediately, like when a principal enters a noisy assembly ground. People started sitting down without even being told. Whispers erupted, but this time it was fear and respect mixed together. Papa Patrick. Nah, him. Ah, the billionaire donor. He is here, Papa Patrick Okoye, a wealthy donor in the church, a respected elder, the kind of man whose presence alone is like offering time. Even Pastor Emmanuel straightened up quickly, like his spine remembered manners. Auntie Juliana's mouth opened again, but no sound came out this time. Because you don't shout when a man like Papa Patrick enters. Papa Patrick's eyes scanned the altar. He saw Ruth on the floor in her wedding dress. He saw Ben on one knee. He saw the confusion in the church. He didn't look shocked. He looked prepared. He nodded once, calm. Then his voice came out deep and confident. I knew I should come early. The church went so quiet you could hear somebody's phone vibrate. Papa Patrick walked forward slowly, not rushing, not apologizing for stepping into the moment. People cleared the aisle for him without being asked. He stopped close to the altar and looked at Ben. Then he looked at Ruth. Then he raised his chin slightly and spoke. "The Spirit told me something was going to happen today." Murmurs started again. Soft ones. Careful ones. Then Papa Patrick continued, firm. "And I came because I needed to see it with my own eyes." He pointed his walking stick lightly toward Ben, not accusing, just confirming. "This boy, Ben, he was sent." Ruth blinked fast, like she wasn't sure she heard right. "Sent." Papa Patrick faced Ruth now. His voice softened small, but it still carried weight. "My daughter, don't question God's assignment." Ruth's throat tightened. Her heart was beating too fast. Papa Patrick added, "People will shout, people will insult, people will laugh." He turned his head slightly and looked across the congregation like a warning. "But nobody here will stop what God is doing." And truly, nobody dared to object. Because Papa Patrick was not just respected, he was a billionaire. His name alone was a blessing to the church. If he said God is in it, even the loudest person suddenly became a choir member. Pastor Emmanuel cleared his throat nervously, like he was trying to remember if the Bible had a page for unexpected altar proposal. Auntie Juliana touched her chest, breathing hard. Chaos still existed, but it reduced.
Not because people suddenly agreed, but because Papa Patrick's presence was heavier than their opinions. Ruth looked back at Ben again. Ben was still kneeling, still steady, still waiting. And now, an elder like Papa Patrick was standing behind him like heaven was backing the madness. Ruth's mind was spinning.
Then a loud voice exploded from the back. "Ruth!" Victor Ajayi stormed into the church like a man possessed. Suit rumpled, tie loose, hair rough, face sweating, eyes wild with anger and regret. He looked like somebody that ran outside, argued, panicked, then remembered shame has consequences. When he saw Ruth in the wedding dress, his face softened for 1 second. Then he saw Ben on one knee. His whole expression changed instantly, like fire poured inside him. "What is this nonsense?" Victor barked, pointing. "Get away from her!" He started marching down the aisle with aggression. Phones went up again, this time with excitement, because drama had returned. Auntie Juliana screamed, "See him! See the fool!" Victor didn't even look at her. He pushed forward, but as he reached close to the altar, someone stepped out and blocked him. A young man, broad shoulders, solid stance, eyes sharp, David Okoye, Ben's younger brother. He positioned himself in front of Victor like a gate that doesn't beg. Victor stopped, breathing hard. "Move!" Victor snapped. David didn't. Victor tried to step around. David shifted with him, blocking him again. Victor's lips curled with disrespect. "Who are you?" David replied coldly. "I'm the one telling you to calm down." Victor scoffed. "I'm not calming anything down." Then Victor pointed at Ben with pure insult. "Look at this, poor cleaner, smelly nobody." He laughed bitterly. "Is this your plan? To use my wife's embarrassment and come and act like hero?" David's jaw tightened. Victor snapped at him again. "And you, get out of my way." Ruth flinched. Not because she was scared of Victor anymore, but because she couldn't believe the audacity. Victor turned fully to Ruth now. "Ruth, stand up, let's go. This is madness." Ben finally spoke again, still calm, still on one knee, but his voice carried authority now. "Victor." Victor turned sharply. "Don't call my name." Ben didn't blink. "It doesn't matter what you think I am." Victor laughed. "It matters. You're a cleaner." Ben's eyes stayed on Ruth, not on Victor, and his voice stayed steady. "What matters is how she deserves to be treated." That line hit the church like thunder. Even the people who were whispering paused. Victor's face twisted in anger. "You think you can give her what I can give her?" Ben finally stood up slowly, not aggressively, just with dignity. And when he stood, he didn't stand like a poor man begging for chance. He stood like a man that already chose his position. He faced Victor calmly. "She deserves a man who doesn't run when it's time to stand." Victor's chest heaved. Ruth looked at Victor properly now. Messy, loud, disrespectful. The same man who ran away and still came back to control the story. And for the first time since she collapsed, Ruth's eyes hardened, not with hatred, with clarity, and she opened her mouth, ready to speak. Ruth's eyes stayed on Victor. That quiet clarity in her face made Victor panic, because for the first time he wasn't looking at a bride begging. He was looking at a woman waking up. Victor swallowed hard and stepped closer, lowering his voice like they were suddenly alone. "Ruth, please, let me talk to you." Ruth didn't move. Victor's eyes were wet now, but it didn't look like love. It looked like regret that people were watching. "I made a mistake," he rushed. "I was confused. I was under pressure. Please, just give me 2 minutes. Let me explain." He stretched his hand toward her gown, like he wanted to hold her and make the whole thing look normal again. Ruth took one step back. Victor's voice cracked. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this." Ruth finally spoke, and her voice didn't shake this time. "No, Victor." Victor blinked. "Ruth." She cut him off sharp. "You don't get to talk now." The church went quiet again. Even the phone stopped moving for a second, like everybody wanted to catch every word. Ruth pointed at him lightly, not dramatic, just direct. "You humiliated me publicly." Victor opened his mouth. Ruth didn't allow him. "You left me here like rubbish, in front of people, in front of my family, in front of God." Victor shook his head fast. "I swear it's not like that." Ruth's eyes flashed. "It is like that." Her voice rose slightly, not shouting, but strong enough to cut through the air. "I stood here ready to spend my whole life with you, and you didn't even respect me enough to show your face." Victor's breathing became rough. He stepped forward again. "Ruth, please." Ruth raised her palm. "Stop." Then she said the line that finished him. "I was never your priority." Victor froze. Ruth continued slower, like she was making sure the words entered his bones. "I was your option." The church reacted with small gasps and murmurs. Victor's eyes widened like she slapped him. "No, Ruth, listen." Ruth nodded once, bitter. "You know the worst part?" Victor whispered. "What?" Ruth's lips trembled, but she held herself. "You came back now because you saw another man stand for me." She turned her head slightly toward Ben, then back to Victor. "You didn't come back because you love me. You came back because you don't want to lose control." Victor's face broke. "Ruth, I beg you." He lowered himself slightly, as if he wanted to kneel. But it was too late. Ruth looked him straight in the eye and finished it. "You abandoned me at the altar. So don't come and pretend I'm still yours." Victor stood there, stunned, like the church floor had shifted under him. And then, slowly, Ruth turned away from Victor. She turned toward Ben. Ben had not moved. He didn't rush her. He didn't smile like he won a competition. He just stood there, calm. And then he gently stretched out his hand toward her, not grabbing, not forcing, just offering. Ruth stared at Ben's hand like it was a bridge. She wasn't sure if it would hold her weight. Her breath came out shaky. Then she looked up at Ben's face. Her voice broke. "Why did you do it?" Ben's eyes stayed soft. Ruth swallowed. "Was it pity?" Her eyes watered again. "Did I look like a charity case to you?" Her voice lowered. "Like, 'Sorry, madam, take this help' kind of thing." Some people in the church started whispering again. But not gossip whispers. This time it was emotional whispers. Because they could feel it. Ruth was not trying to be proud. She was trying not to break completely. Ben shook his head slowly. "No." Ruth's lips trembled. Ben stepped a little closer, still respectful, still giving space. Then he spoke, deep and comforting. "Nobody deserves to be abandoned like that." He looked at her dress, then back to her eyes. "That shame is not your portion, Ruth." Ruth's shoulders shook. Ben continued, voice gentle but firm. You didn't do anything to deserve that pain. You didn't come here to be laughed at. You came here to be loved." He paused. Then he added something that sounded simple but landed heavily. "And even if the whole world chooses to look away, nobody should collapse alone." Ruth's eyes squeezed shut. A tear ran down her cheek. Ben's hand stayed open, not pushing, just waiting. Ruth opened her eyes again. Her body was trembling, but something in her face changed. Like she picked dignity and dropped shame. She reached out slowly. Her fingers touched Ben's palm. And she said it, small voice but strong meaning. "I accept." For 1 second there was silence. Like the whole church needed to confirm what they heard. Then the church erupted. "Oh my God. Jesus. Ha! Is this real?" Phones went higher like people wanted proof that madness truly happened. Pastor Emmanuel's mouth opened and refused to close. His eyes were wide like his brain left his body. Auntie Juliana screamed something. Nobody even understood it. Then her eyes rolled back. "Jesus." She fainted. 2 women quickly held her before she hit the floor. Ruth still held Ben's hand, breathing hard. And Ben held her steady. Not like a hero. Like a man who meant what he said. "Read the vows." Ruth's hand was still in Ben's hand. The church was still noisy, like a market during Christmas rush. Phones were up. People were shouting. Some were laughing from shock. Some were crying like they just witnessed a miracle. Pastor Emmanuel stood there like a man whose soul stepped outside his body for fresh air. Then Papa Patrick clapped. Not a small clap. The kind of clap that sounds like order. Clap, clap. The church went quiet again, instantly. Because when a respected elder like Papa Patrick speaks, even stubborn spirits behave. Papa Patrick raised his chin and looked at Pastor Emmanuel. "Pastor Emmanuel," he said loudly, "read the vows." Pastor blinked like he wanted to ask if he was dreaming. "Sir, Papa Patrick." He looked at Ruth, looked at Ben, looked at the entire church like "You sure say this one no be film?" Then he cleared his throat. "My children, are you both serious?" The question was not even for drama. The man genuinely wanted to save his own head. Because tomorrow if Wahala enter, now him dem go blame. Ben turned to Ruth immediately. His voice was calm, not excited, not proud, just steady. "Ruth, you can still walk away." He loosened his grip slightly, giving her space. No pressure, no shame. He looked into her eyes. "If you don't want this, I will understand." The church held its breath. Even Victor, standing somewhere with anger and shame, became quiet like his own mouth feared the moment. Ruth's eyes moved around the church. All those faces, all those phones, all those people that watched her fall. Her throat tightened. She didn't want to leave as the abandoned bride. Not today. Not like that. She nodded slowly. Not because everything was suddenly perfect, but because she was choosing to stand. "I'm not leaving," she whispered. Ben nodded once. "Okay." Pastor Emmanuel swallowed hard. He opened his Bible with shaking fingers. "All right." He started the vows immediately like a man trying to obey before the ground opens. Ben answered clearly, respectfully, no jokes. No showing off, just commitment. Ruth said her own through tears. Her voice broke, but she forced the words out. Because she needed those words to pull her out of that humiliation. And when Pastor Emmanuel finally said, "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the church screamed again. Papa Patrick lifted both hands. "Praise! God has done it. Shame is cancelled." People started clapping wildly. Somebody shouted, "Nah, film?" Ben turned to Ruth. He didn't grab her face. He didn't do anything dramatic. He simply leaned in and kissed her cheeks, gently, respectfully. One side, then the other, like a promise of safety, not romance. Ruth closed her eyes, her body still shaking. But she didn't pull away. Papa Patrick shouted again, "God is wonderful," and the church exploded one more time. After the sudden vows, everything moved fast. People rushed forward to see more closely. Some were trying to take pictures with Ruth like she was trending already. Auntie Juliana was now sitting up again, fanning herself dramatically. Jesus, Ruth, this is not what I planned. Pastor Emmanuel was still looking stressed, like he would go home and take 2 paracetamol.
Ben held Ruth's hand and gently guided her toward the exit. "Let's go," he said softly. Ruth nodded, like a person walking inside a dream. As they stepped outside, the sun hit her face. The church compound was full. Guests poured out behind them like a flood, and then everybody saw it.
A rusty old car parked by the side. Not a wedding car. Not even small nice car. Just an old, tired car that looked like it had suffered Lagos traffic since 2003. Somebody gasped loudly. "Ah, see car." Another person laughed. "So this is the kind of car the bride will enter?" Ruth froze. Her eyes went to the car, then back to Ben. Ben sighed quietly. I called a friend," he explained gently. "I borrowed it. It's the only one we could get quick." Ruth's cheeks burned. People were staring hard. A bride in white, with a poor cleaner husband, entering a rusty car. Phones came closer. Ruth felt her stomach twist. Shame tried to climb her throat again. But Ben opened the passenger door for her like she was entering a Rolls Royce. His voice was low. "Ruth, take your time." Ruth bent and entered. The seat was dusty. The smell was old car and heat. Her gown struggled with the door. She pulled it in slowly, hands shaking. Ben went to the driver's side and entered too. He started the car. It coughed like it didn't like the assignment. People outside were still staring. Some were even following small. Ruth sat stiff. Her mind was blank. Her heart was heavy. She felt numb, confused, ashamed, like she wanted to disappear. As they drove out of the church compound, Ruth finally whispered, voice shaking. "Ben." Ben glanced at her quickly, then back to the road. "Yes." Ruth swallowed. I don't know what I just did." Ben slowed his voice, gentle like he was talking to someone about to faint. "You're safe." Ruth's eyes filled again. "But everyone?" Ben interrupted softly. "Let them look." He kept driving, steady hands. "Today you stood up from the ground." He nodded once, like he meant it. "People stare at what they don't understand. Tomorrow they'll move to another matter." Ruth's breathing was shaky. Ben added, quieter, "You're not a joke, Ruth. You're not a shame. You're a human being, and you deserve peace." Ruth stared at him, her chest still hurting. But his voice was doing something small inside her, like putting a blanket over a wound. The old car moved forward into the Lagos road, and Ruth, still in her white gown, sat beside a man she barely knew, going into a life she never planned. The old car kept rolling forward, swallowing distance between Ruth and the church she left behind. Traffic noise filled the air, honking and shouting the usual Lagos soundtrack, but inside the car it felt like another world. Ruth stared out the window without really seeing anything. Ben drove with calm focus, hands steady on the steering wheel. After a while, he spoke gently. "We're almost there." Ruth didn't answer. She only nodded once, small and tired. They turned into a quieter street. Not fancy, not dangerous, just ordinary. The kind of place people come home to, lock their gate, and mind their business. Ben parked in front of a modest block of flats. Paint slightly faded, but the compound looked clean. A few slippers outside some doors. A small generator somewhere humming like it was tired of life. Ben came down first and opened Ruth's door. "Take your time," he said. Ruth stepped out slowly, lifting her dress. Her white gown looked strange against the everyday environment, like a wedding had accidentally dropped into normal life. A woman on a balcony glanced and whispered to someone inside. Ruth's body tensed. Ben noticed. He didn't rush her. He simply walked beside her, close enough to feel safe, not close enough to suffocate her. They climbed the stairs. Second floor. Ben brought out his key and opened his door. Ruth stepped in, and she paused. The apartment was small but neat. Not the kind of place rich people post online. But it was clean. The floor was swept. A simple couch, a small center table, curtains that looked old but washed, a shelf with a few books, a small dining table with 2 chairs that didn't match. Nothing fancy, nothing chaotic, just calm. Ruth's shoulders dropped slightly, like her body finally allowed itself to breathe. Ben placed her small bag carefully on the chair. "This is it," he said quietly. "It's not much." Ruth didn't respond. She only looked around slowly, taking it in. The silence was doing something to her. It was not the painful silence of being abandoned at the altar. It was the quiet silence of nobody is shouting at you here. Ben cleared his throat gently. "There's water in the bathroom if you want to freshen up." Ruth nodded again. Ben hesitated, then added, "Ruth, you can leave any time." Ruth turned to him, eyes tired. Ben continued, voice steady. "I mean it. If you want to go tomorrow, next week, any time, you can go. I won't hold you here. I won't use today to trap you." Ruth's throat tightened again, but she forced the words out. "I don't want to think." Ben nodded as if he understood completely. "Okay." Ruth looked away, blinking fast. "I just want peace," she whispered. Silence. Ben's eyes softened. "You'll have it." He stepped back, giving her space. Ruth walked toward the small bedroom door he pointed to. Her dress brushed the floor. Her steps were slow, heavy, like she had carried a whole crowd on her head all day. And for the first time since the church, she entered a room where nobody was recording her pain. Ruth had barely settled. She had only changed into a simple wrapper Ben offered her, washed her face, and sat on the edge of the bed like a woman still waiting for her mind to return. Then she heard it. A loud knock. Not normal knocking, the kind of knocking that comes with anger. Bang, bang, bang. Ben was in the living room. He stood up immediately, alert. The knocking came again. "Open this door." Ben's jaw tightened slightly. He walked to the door, and before he could even touch the handle, the voice continued, "Ben, I know you're inside." Ruth's heart jumped. She stood, wrapper tight around her body, suddenly afraid again. Ben opened the door, and a tall man stormed in like he owned the building. His eyes were sharp. His face was tense. His shirt looked expensive, the kind people wear when they are coming from something important. Ruth recognized him instantly. Michael Okoye, her older brother. "Ruth!" Michael shouted, rushing forward. "What are you doing here?" Ruth froze. The room that felt quiet a few minutes ago suddenly felt too small. Michael turned to Ben like a lion. "You!" he barked. "What is this nonsense? How dare you take advantage of my sister?" Ben didn't flinch. He stood still, calm and straight, like a wall. "I didn't take advantage of her," Ben said quietly. Michael laughed, bitter and loud. "So you didn't? A whole wedding scattered and suddenly you are the hero? You think we are stupid?" He pointed at Ben's chest. "You saw her at her weakest and you grabbed your opportunity." Ruth tried to speak, but her voice didn't come out. Michael's anger was loud enough for all of them. Ben's voice remained steady. "She came here because she wanted peace." Michael stepped forward aggressively. "Peace? Don't use sweet words to cover nonsense. Ruth is not your charity project." He looked at Ruth. "Ruth, come, now." Ruth swallowed hard. Her eyes moved between Ben and Michael. Michael softened his tone slightly, but it still carried command. "Come home. We will handle this. We will fix it." Ruth's chest tightened. Home suddenly felt like noise, questions, judgment, everybody talking at once, everybody deciding things for her. Ben spoke again, calm but firmer. "Michael, she can decide." Michael snapped his head toward him. "You're still talking." Before the argument could rise higher, the door opened again, and the air in the room changed instantly. Papa Patrick walked in, not rushing, not shouting, just walking with authority like his presence alone was enough to calm foolishness. 2 men followed behind him, quiet, serious looking. Not bodyguards exactly, but the kind of men that don't play. Michael turned sharply. Papa Patrick? Papa Patrick didn't greet him with warmth. He looked at Michael like a man looking at a child misbehaving in public. Michael Okoye, Papa Patrick said calmly. Lower your voice. Michael's chest rose and fell. Sir, with respect. Papa Patrick lifted one finger. With respect, he repeated. You will not come here and turn this place into another church scene. Michael tried again, voice strained. But this man... Papa Patrick cut him off, still calm. This man stepped in to save your sister from public disgrace. Michael scoffed. Save her, or trap her? Papa Patrick's eyes hardened slightly. Listen to yourself. Your sister was humiliated in front of the whole world, and your first concern is to accuse the one person who offered her dignity. Michael went quiet. Not because he agreed, because Papa Patrick's tone did not leave room for stubbornness. Papa Patrick turned to Ruth now, his voice softer. My daughter. What do you want? Ruth's lips parted. She breathed in slowly. Her voice came out low but clear. I want quiet. Michael stared at her. Ruth. She looked at him, tired but firm. Please. Not today. Michael's face tightened. His pride fought her words. His protectiveness fought her choice. Papa Patrick nodded once, as if that settled it. Then she will stay. Michael shook his head. This is not... Papa Patrick's voice dropped, calm but dangerous. It is. And if you truly love your sister, you will let her breathe. Michael looked at Ruth again. Ruth didn't beg. She didn't explain. She only stood there, choosing calm with her eyes. Michael swallowed his anger like hot tea. Then he pointed at Ben one last time. If anything happens to her, Ben answered without blinking. Nothing will happen to her. Michael looked at Ruth again. Then stiffly he turned and walked out. Papa Patrick watched him go, then faced Ben. You did well, he said simply. Ben nodded respectfully. Ruth sat down slowly, like her legs suddenly remembered they were weak. And the apartment became quiet again. But this time, the quiet had survived a storm. Morning light entered the small apartment gently, slipping through the curtains like it didn't want to disturb anyone. Ruth opened her eyes slowly. For a few seconds, she didn't remember where she was. Then reality came back. The church, Victor, the phones, the vows, the old car, the apartment. Her chest tightened. She sat up, breathing carefully. She looked down at the wrapper she wore and the simple t-shirt Ben had given her to sleep in. Everything felt unreal. Like yesterday was a dream someone forced her to watch. Ruth stood and walked out slowly into the living room. The smell of food hit her nose. Simple food. Warm food. She followed the smell and found Ben in the tiny kitchen area. He was stirring something in a small pot, calm like it was a normal morning. On the counter was bread, a plate, tea. He turned when he heard her footsteps. Good morning, he said softly. Ruth stared at him like she was still trying to understand him. Ben didn't stare back too hard. He just smiled lightly and went back to what he was doing. I made something small, he said. Just tea and bread and noodles. You can eat if you want. Ruth sat down slowly at the small table. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers twisting slightly. Ben brought the plate and set it in front of her gently, as she might break. Ruth watched him. How are you behaving like this? She finally asked, voice low. Ben looked at her. What do you mean? Ruth's eyes narrowed, not with anger but confusion. You are too calm, too kind. Ben gave a small smile. Ruth continued, words coming out faster now. Why are you like this with me? You don't even know me. People are not normally this soft. Ben sat opposite her, not too close. He rested his elbows lightly on the table. Ruth's voice dropped. Is this how you are with strangers? Ben smiled again, a little wider this time. Yes. Ruth blinked. That's not normal. Ben chuckled quietly. Maybe. Ruth stared at him, searching his face. Why? Ben's eyes softened. His voice stayed gentle. Because life is already harsh. He paused, then continued like he was choosing his words carefully. People wake up and fight the world every day. Money, sickness, rejection, family pressure, shame. It is a lot. Ruth swallowed. Ben went on. So when life roughs someone up, I don't want to be another hand pushing them down. He nodded toward her plate slightly. You needed a soft place to land. That's all. Ruth's eyes filled again. But this time the tears weren't only pain. They were also confusion. And something she hadn't felt since yesterday. Relief. She lowered her gaze to the food. Her voice came out small. Thank you. Ben didn't make it big. He simply nodded and said, Eat first. And Ruth, still shaking inside, still unsure of everything, picked up the bread slowly and took her first quiet bite in a long, long time. Ruth chewed slowly, still trying to calm her mind. Ben's words, life is already harsh, kept echoing in her head like a soft song. She lifted her teacup, took a sip, then placed it down. For the first time since yesterday, her breathing felt normal. Then, a knock came. Not the violent knocking from last night. This one was controlled, sharp, professional. Ben's eyes changed immediately, just for a second. Like a man who had been resting but suddenly remembered something heavy. He stood up. I'll get it, he said, voice calm. Ruth watched him walk to the door. Ben opened it slightly. Two men stood outside, both in suits, clean shoes, earpieces. The kind of men who looked like they came from air-conditioned offices, not this small compound. One of them spoke first, low and respectful. Good morning, sir. Ben stepped out into the corridor and pulled the door almost shut behind him, but not fully. Ruth could still hear bits and pieces. The second man spoke now. Mr. Okoye, we've been calling. The board is already waiting. Ruth froze. Mr. Okoye, her hand tightened around her cup. The first man continued, voice urgent but controlled. Okoye Holdings needs you. There's a hostile move on the table. If you don't join the call now, they will push it through. Ben's voice came firm and quick. Not here. A pause. Then the first man again. It's the acquisition, sir. They're trying to force it. Your signature... Ben cut him off. I said not here. Ruth's heart began to beat fast. She leaned forward without meaning to, trying to catch more. The second man lowered his voice. Caleb Daniels, head of operations. I'm only here because this is serious. Ben sounded like a door closing. Caleb, leave. Caleb tried again, softer. Sir, if you don't act now, we lose control. Ben's tone stayed cold. Then we lose it. Go. Silence. Ruth held her breath. Then she heard footsteps moving away. Ben opened the door and stepped back inside like nothing happened. But Ruth's eyes were already different. They were not soft anymore. They were sharp. Ben turned toward her. Ruth. She didn't answer. Because in her head one sentence kept repeating like an alarm. Mr. Okoye. Board. Acquisition. Hostile move. Okoye Holdings. This man was not who he said he was. And the comfort she just started trusting suddenly felt like a trap. Ben walked closer. You heard something? Ruth stood up slowly, pushing the chair back. Her voice came out low. Who are you? Ben didn't panic. But his eyes looked heavy, like he had been waiting for this moment. Ruth, he said gently. Please. Ruth shook her head. No, don't please me. Ben swallowed. It's complicated. Ruth laughed once, bitter and short. Complicated? Ben stepped closer. I was going to explain, just not like this. Ruth's face tightened. So you planned to explain when it was convenient for you? Ben's voice dropped. I didn't want to add more confusion to what you were already going through. Ruth pointed at him, her hands shaking. Ben, comfort is not trust. Ben's eyes softened. I know. Ruth's voice rose slightly. You made me feel safe. You told me I could leave any time. You cooked for me. You spoke like you cared. She paused, breathing hard. But you also lied. Ben's jaw tightened. I didn't lie about caring. Ruth blinked fast, fighting tears. But you lied about who you are. Ben took a slow breath. I can't explain everything yet. Ruth stared at him like she was seeing him for the first time. And why not? Because you think I can't handle it? Or because you're hiding something worse? Ben's voice came out pained. Because explaining it now will put you in a bigger mess. Ruth stepped back. So I'm already in your mess. Ben opened his mouth, but no words came out fast enough. Ruth grabbed her small bag. Ben moved toward her. Ruth, please don't go like this. Ruth's eyes were wet, but her tone was firm. I would rather walk into confusion with my eyes open than stay in peace built on lies. Ben stood still. Ruth reached the door. Ben's voice followed her soft. I never planned to hurt you. Ruth didn't turn back. Her hand held the handle. She whispered almost to herself, but you did. Then she opened the door and walked out. Her heart felt like it had been ripped twice, first by Victor, now by the man who held her up after the fall. Outside, the morning sun hit her face, but she felt cold. She walked down the stairs slowly, like she didn't trust her own legs. And when she reached the compound gate, she didn't even know where she was going. She only knew she couldn't stay. Ruth walked without direction, wiping tears with the back of her hand. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. Another buzz. She ignored it. She just wanted air. She just wanted distance. Then a familiar voice called her name from behind. Ruth. Her body stiffened immediately. She turned. Victor Ajayi, standing there like he had been looking for her. His shirt was rumpled. His eyes were tired. His face carried that same desperate energy from the church. He walked toward her quickly. Ruth, please listen to me. Ruth's voice came out sharp. What are you doing here again? Victor held out his hands like he wanted to touch her but didn't dare. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I've been trying to reach you. Ruth scoffed. You abandoned me at the altar. Victor nodded, eyes pained. I know, I made a mistake. Ruth stepped back. A mistake is forgetting your keys, not humiliating someone in front of a whole church. Victor's face hardened a bit, like frustration was mixing with regret. And now you're with that lowlife cleaner? Ruth's eyes flashed. Don't you dare. Victor blinked. Ruth, she cut him off. You don't get to insult Ben. Victor laughed bitterly. So you don't even know what he is? Ruth, you deserve more than... Ruth stepped closer, voice low and dangerous. You left me. You broke me in public. You don't get to come back now and start talking about what I deserve. Victor swallowed. I'm trying to save you. Ruth narrowed her eyes. Save me from what? From the shame you created? Victor opened his mouth, then stopped, because a car door clicked behind him. Ruth's eyes shifted. A black car was parked a few steps away. Tinted windows, classy, quiet. Then someone stepped out slowly like she was stepping out of a movie. A woman, well-dressed, clean, controlled. She wore confidence like perfume. Her hair was neatly styled. Her makeup was soft but expensive. Her eyes looked calm, but not friendly. She adjusted her handbag and walked forward. Victor stiffened slightly, as if he suddenly remembered he wasn't alone. The woman smiled at Ruth, polite and sweet. Hello, Ruth. Ruth stared. She knew that face. She had seen her around Victor before. Victor always said the same thing. She's just a friend. The woman extended her hand like she was doing charity. I'm Linda Ajayi. Ruth didn't shake her hand. Victor's jaw tightened. Linda's smile stayed. She spoke gently, but her tone carried control. Victor is upset. He hasn't been himself.
I told him to come and apologize properly. Ruth watched her closely. Something about Linda's voice felt like she was not helping. She was managing.
Ruth looked at Victor. Victor looked away. Ruth's stomach tightened. Because Linda didn't speak like someone who came to support a friend. She spoke like someone who owned the situation. Owned Victor. Ruth's voice came out slow. So you came with him? Linda smiled again. Yes. Ruth's eyes moved between them. Victor had always insisted Linda was nothing. Yet here she was, arriving like a partner, not a friend. Linda turned slightly to Victor, her voice still sweet. Victor, calm down. Victor obeyed immediately, like her words were a remote control. Ruth's chest rose and fell. She stared at Victor again. And in that moment, Ruth knew something clearly. Victor did not run alone. Someone was behind him. Someone was controlling the story. And Linda Ajayi's smile looked like the beginning of another fight Ruth never asked for. Ruth stood there for a moment, staring at Linda's calm smile. Something clearly. Victor did not run alone. Someone was behind him. Someone was controlling the story. And Linda Ajayi's smile looked like the beginning of another fight Ruth never asked for. Ruth stood there for a moment, staring at Linda's calm smile. Then she turned and walked away. Victor called her name once, twice. She did not answer. She walked until the road became quiet, until the noise in her head became the loudest thing around her. By the time she got home, her legs were tired, her eyes were swollen, and her chest felt tight like someone tied rope around it. She pushed open the door and entered her small sitting room. Her phone buzzed again. This time she looked. A message from a number she didn't know. "Congratulations, sis. You done marry billionaire O." Ruth frowned. Her fingers shook as she opened Instagram. 1 post, 2 posts, 3 posts. All of them the same thing. A photo from the church. Her in her gown. Ben in that cleaner uniform. And the headline in bold letters. "Abandoned bride marries billionaire heir." Ruth's heart dropped. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She refreshed the page. Another blog. Another headline. "Okoye Holdings heir shocks Nigeria. Marries abandoned bride at altar." Ruth's knees went weak. She sat down slowly like the floor was moving. "No, no, no." She whispered it like prayer. She didn't even know what Okoye Holdings was, but everybody online was talking like Ben was royalty. People were arguing in comments. Some were praising her. Some were insulting her. Some were calling her a smart girl like she planned it. Ruth pressed her palm to her forehead. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear I didn't know." The door opened hard. Michael Okoye walked in, Ruth's older brother. The same brother that wanted to drag her away from Ben's apartment like Ben was a criminal. But today, Michael's eyes were shining like he just found a winning lottery ticket. He rushed inside with his phone held up. "Ruth! Ruth! Do you know what is happening?" Ruth looked up slowly. Her voice was tired. "I just saw it." Michael laughed, full of excitement. "Saw it? This thing is everywhere. Everybody is shouting your name online. Do you know what this means for us?" Ruth stood up, shaking her head. "Michael, please, not now." Michael moved closer, lowering his voice like they were planning something. "This is it. This is our breakthrough. You can't spoil it." Ruth's eyes filled. "I didn't marry him for money." Michael waved his hand like that statement was small. "That's not even the point. The point is that you are married to him now, so you must go back there." Ruth stared at him. "Go back where?" "To him. To that house. To that life. Ruth, do you know the kind of doors this marriage can open?" Ruth's voice rose, hurt inside it. "So that is what you see? Doors?" Michael frowned. "Ruth, be wise." Ruth stepped back. "No, you don't understand. I'm not playing a game." Michael sighed dramatically. "You think I don't understand? I understand very well. You are now Mrs. Okoye. Do you know what that name can do?" Ruth's tears fell. That name is the reason my life is shaking again. Michael's face hardened. You better control yourself. Don't go and ruin this blessing because of pride. Ruth wiped her face quickly. It's not pride, it's truth. Michael pointed at her phone. Truth or not, the world already believes it, so act like it. Ruth shook her head again and again. I didn't marry him because he is rich. I married him because I didn't want to leave that church broken. Michael scoffed. Now you know he is rich, so stop overthinking it and enjoy it. Ruth's voice dropped low, firm. You won't force me, not this time. Michael stared at her like she was crazy. Ruth picked up her phone and walked past him. Her hands were trembling, but her mind was made up. She needed to hear the truth from one person. Ben. So she called him. Once. No answer. Twice. No answer. Her throat tightened. She tried again. This time he picked. Ruth, Ben said softly. Just hearing his voice made her chest ache. Where are you? She asked. A pause. Then, are you safe? Ruth almost laughed from pain. Safe? Ben, my face is on every phone in Nigeria. Ben exhaled slowly. I know. Ruth's voice cracked. Meet me somewhere, please. Another pause. Then he said, There's a small park not far from your area. The one with the old swings and the big trees. I'll be there. Ruth hung up and left the house without looking at Michael again. At the park, the air was quiet. Children were playing far away. A woman was selling groundnuts near the gate. Everything looked normal, like the world didn't just turn her life upside down. Ben was already there. He stood under a tree wearing simple clothes, no uniform, no broom, just Ben. When Ruth saw him, she stopped walking. Her eyes moved over him like she was trying to match two different people in one body. Ben stepped forward carefully. Ruth. Ruth didn't greet him back. She held up her phone and showed him the headline. Ben looked at it once, then looked away. Ruth's voice was low. So it's true. Ben nodded. Yes. Ruth's lips trembled. Why didn't you tell me? Ben didn't defend himself quickly. He sat down on the bench like someone carrying a load. Then he patted the space beside him. Ruth didn't sit. She crossed her arms, like holding herself together. Ben spoke gently. My name is Ben Okoye, that part is true. Ruth swallowed. And Okoye Holdings? Ben nodded again. It's my family's company. It's our empire. Ruth stared at him. So you were pretending? Ben shook his head. I was hiding. There's a difference. Ruth's eyes narrowed. Explain. Ben looked up at her, calm but serious. Ruth, people don't love me the way they claim. They love what they can get from me. Ruth's expression softened for 1 second, then hardened again. So you decided I shouldn't know anything? Ben stood up now, meeting her eye to eye. I didn't plan for any of this. Ruth let out a small, bitter sound. But it happened. Ben nodded. Yes. Then he spoke slowly, like he wanted her to see every piece clearly. I started working in that church not long ago. I needed quiet. I needed to disappear for a while. Ruth's breathing slowed. Ben continued. Every Sunday I watched people come in. They would pray. They would cry. They would lift hands. They would claim love. He paused. Then after service, those same people would walk past the cleaner like he was air. Ruth's face changed. Ben's voice remained soft. They didn't greet. They didn't notice. They didn't care. Ruth swallowed. Ben looked down briefly, then back up. But you did. Ruth's throat tightened. Ben said, That morning you greeted me. Properly, like I was human. Ruth blinked. Ben added quietly, You even gave me a bottle of water. Ruth's eyes widened a bit as the memory returned. She had done it without thinking. Ben continued, I didn't know you were the bride at first. I just saw you earlier and thought, This woman is kind. Ruth's voice came out small. And that is why you did it? Ben nodded. When I saw you stranded at the altar, Ruth, I couldn't watch. He took a step closer. I know that kind of pain. Being seen but treated like you don't matter. Ruth's eyes filled again. Ben spoke like he was begging her to understand. Nobody deserves to collapse alone in public. Nobody. Ruth's shoulders dropped slightly, but her voice still shook. So you married me because I gave you water? Ben shook his head quickly. No, I stepped forward because you were being destroyed. I married you because you said yes, because you chose dignity over shame. Ruth stared at him, trying to fight the tears. Ben's face turned serious again. And there's another reason I was hiding. Ruth whispered. What? Ben's jaw tightened. I have enemies. Ruth felt cold. Ben said, one enemy in particular. Ruth's voice dropped. Who? Ben answered, clear and heavy. Ashton Group. Ruth sat down slowly this time, like her legs finally accepted they couldn't hold all of this. Ben remained standing, watching her face. Ruth asked carefully, what is Ashton Group? Ben exhaled once. They're a rival company, powerful, rich, angry. Ruth's eyes lifted. Angry because of you? Ben nodded. Because of Okoye Holdings. Ruth whispered. And who leads them? Ben's voice became even more controlled. Kelvin Ajayi. Ruth's stomach tightened. The same surname as Victor. Ben's eyes didn't move. Yes. Ruth's heart beat faster. Ben continued. Kelvin Ajayi is the CEO of Ashton Group. He has tried for years to destroy Okoye Holdings. Ruth's voice was quiet. Destroy how? Ben explained, simple and direct. By absorbing us, breaking our investors, buying what he can, attacking what he can't buy, making us look unstable so the world will doubt us. Ruth stared at him. And you disappeared because of that? Ben nodded. My disappearance made them think I'm weak. It made them think I was running. It gave them confidence. Ruth's lips parted. And now, this marriage. Ben's face tightened with regret. It made everything loud. Ruth's eyes filled again. You didn't plan it? Ben shook his head slowly. No, I didn't. He paused, voice lower. I only knew I couldn't leave you standing there. Ruth looked away, wiping her tears quickly. Ben stepped closer, softer now. But the truth is, once the world saw Okoye attached to you, it became a signal. Ruth whispered. A signal to who? Ben answered, to Kelvin Ajayi. Ruth swallowed hard. Ben's voice was calm, but the meaning was dangerous. He will not ignore you, Ruth. Not anymore. Ruth looked up at him, fear and anger mixing. So I got pulled into your war. Ben nodded once. Yes. Then he added quietly, and I'm sorry. Because you didn't deserve another fight after the one Victor gave you. Ruth stared at him, breathing hard, as the park suddenly felt too open and too exposed. And for the first time, Ruth understood something painful. The wedding that saved her dignity might have placed a target on her back. Ruth's hands were still shaking from everything Ben just said. The park suddenly felt too open, like anybody could be listening. Ruth looked around, then looked back at Ben. Her voice came out sharp, like pain turning into anger. So tell me the truth, Ben. The full truth, not half-truth. Ben held her gaze. His face was calm, but his eyes looked heavy, like he was about to drop a stone into water. Okay, he said quietly. I'll tell you everything. Ruth's heart beat fast. Ben took a slow breath. Victor is connected to Kelvin Ajayi. Ruth froze. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Ben continued, careful and direct. Victor is Kelvin's inside man, his errand man in high-level deals, the one he uses to enter places he cannot enter himself. Ruth's eyes narrowed. Why would Victor agree to that? Ben's jaw tightened. Because Kelvin has dirt on him. Ruth blinked, What kind of dirt? Ben didn't go into details yet. He just said the truth the way it was. Enough to ruin him. Enough to destroy his name. So Victor is controlled. Ruth's chest rose and fell sharply. So Victor is not just wicked. He's a puppet. Ben nodded. Yes. Ruth's lips trembled. But he loved me. At least I thought. Ben's voice softened slightly. I believe he had feelings for you. That's why Kelvin used you. Ruth's face twisted in pain. Used me how? Ben looked down for a second, then back at her. He was ordered. Ruth's throat tightened. Ben said it slowly so it would land properly. Kelvin ordered Victor to humiliate you at the altar. Ruth's eyes widened. Her whole body went cold. Ben continued. Kelvin noticed Victor had a soft spot for you, and Kelvin also knew I had a soft spot for you. Ruth swallowed hard. Ben pointed back to the beginning like connecting dots. He saw how you treated me that morning. The greeting, the water, the kindness. Ruth's voice cracked. So it was planned. Ben nodded once. Yes. Kelvin wanted me exposed publicly because a hidden man is hard to attack. Ruth's face tightened with disgust. And Linda? Ben didn't hesitate. Kelvin and Linda believed I would step out to save you. Ruth's eyes filled with tears again, but these ones were hot. She stood up suddenly, as if sitting was too weak for what she felt. So I was a pawn? Her voice broke on the word. A bait. Her breathing became uneven, like she might throw up. I was the goat they tied in the market to catch a lion. Ben stepped closer fast. Ruth! Ruth pointed at him, anger shaking her finger. Don't pity me. Don't comfort me like a child. Tell me the truth. Was I just a pawn in your rich people war? Ben's voice became firmer, not loud, just solid. No. Ruth's eyes were wet but sharp. Ben said it again, clearer. No, you were not a pawn. Ruth laughed once, short, painful, but everything happened exactly the way they wanted. Ben nodded. Yes, they planned to disgrace you, to force my hand. Ruth's voice was bitter, and you walked right into it. Ben looked at her with steady eyes. I walked into the part where you were bleeding in public. He paused. Ruth, the plan was theirs, but my choice was mine. Ruth blinked. Ben continued, gentle but strong. Kelvin wanted you broken. He wanted you to crawl out of that church like trash. Ruth's throat tightened. Ben said, I didn't let that happen. Ruth's tears fell. Ben stepped closer, lowering his voice. You didn't deserve what Victor did. You didn't deserve what Kelvin planned, and you didn't deserve to be used. He shook his head slowly. But you were not a pawn to me. You were a human being I refused to watch collapse. Ruth covered her mouth with her hand. She turned away, breathing hard. Ben waited. Then Ruth whispered, almost like she was asking the air. So what now? Ben answered quietly. Now we take your life back from their hands. Ben didn't waste time. He didn't want Ruth staying in the open. He guided her out of the park quickly, keeping his eyes moving like someone trained to notice danger. They had barely reached the parking area when a black car rolled up and stopped smoothly. 2 men stepped out. Suit, tie, clean shoes, cold faces. One of them walked forward with a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Okoye, he said politely. Ruth's stomach dropped. Ben stepped slightly in front of Ruth, like a shield. What do you want? Ben asked. The man's smile widened. I'm just a messenger, nothing more. Ben didn't move. The man glanced at Ruth, then back at Ben. Congratulations on your surprise marriage. Ruth's hands clenched. Ben's voice remained calm. Say your message. The messenger nodded like he was enjoying it. Mr. Kelvin Ajayi sends his regards. Ruth's heart began to race. The man continued, voice smooth. He says it's nice to finally see you in the open. Ben's eyes hardened. The messenger leaned in a little, like sharing a secret. He also says, your new wife is very interesting. Ruth's breathing hitched. Ben's voice went colder. Get to the point. The messenger lifted his hand slightly, still smiling. The point is simple. He spoke slowly. If you want peace, you will cooperate. Ben didn't react. The messenger's smile turned sharper. If you don't, we will make your wife a scandal. Ruth's knees felt weak. Her mouth went dry. The messenger continued. We have press ready. We have pictures, we have stories, we have angles. Ruth's eyes widened. Ben's voice stayed controlled. Like what angles? The messenger shrugged. Whatever sells. Gold digger bride, secret mistress, church setup, billionaire heir forced into marriage. Ruth's face went pale. The messenger looked at her directly now. And madam, Nigeria loves a good disgrace. Ruth's chest tightened. Her vision blurred for a second. Ben turned his head slightly, checking Ruth. Then he looked back at the messenger. You're done? The messenger smiled. For today. Ben nodded once. Tell Kelvin this. He can't scare me with noise. The messenger chuckled softly. This is not noise, sir. This is warning. He stepped back. But don't worry. We will be in touch. He returned to the car. The door shut. The car drove off as if nothing happened. Ruth stood there, frozen. Then her breath broke. She started shaking badly. Ben. Ben. Her voice sounded like she was drowning. Ben held her shoulders gently but firmly. Look at me, he said. Ruth tried to focus. Ben's tone was calm, steady, not panicked. You're safe. Ruth's eyes were wet with fear. They are going to destroy me. Ben shook his head. No, they will try, but they won't. Ruth swallowed. Ben added, From this moment, we tighten everything. He pulled out his phone and made one quick call. His voice turned sharp and professional. Bring the car around now and call the security team. Full cover. Ruth stared at him. This was not the quiet cleaner anymore. This was a man who had fought wars before. Ben ended the call and looked at her again. I'm sorry you met my enemy this way, he said softly. Ruth's lips trembled. Ben said, But I promise you, he will not touch you. That evening, Ruth couldn't rest. Even inside Ben's place, every small sound made her flinch. A knock, a car horn outside. A footstep on the stairs. Her mind kept replaying the church. Victor's absence. The humiliation, the headlines. Now this threat. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands locked together. Ben stood near the window, watching outside like a guard. Ruth finally spoke. Ben, I need space. Ben turned slowly. His eyes were gentle. Okay. Ruth looked up, surprised. No argument, no control, no pride. Just okay. Ben asked, Where will you feel safe? Ruth hesitated. I don't know, somewhere neutral, somewhere I can breathe. Ben nodded. I'll take you to a good hotel, clean, quiet, secure. Ruth's heart beat fast. And you? Ben's voice stayed calm. I'll stay close. Ruth swallowed. They drove in silence. The city lights passed them like blurred lines. When they got to the hotel, it was neat and bright. Security at the entrance. Cameras. A calm lobby. Ben got down first, opened her door gently. He walked her inside, handled the check-in quickly, then escorted her to the room. At the door, Ruth paused. Ben said softly, I'll stay outside until you enter and lock the door. Ruth stared at him. You'll stay outside? Ben nodded. You asked for space, I'm giving it. Ruth's throat tightened. She opened the door, entered, and turned back. Ben was still standing there, calm, like a wall. Ruth whispered, Ben. Ben's eyes lifted to hers. Yes. Ruth wanted to say something. Thank you. Sorry, I'm scared. Don't leave. But the words didn't come out. She just nodded slowly. Ben nodded back. Lock the door, he said gently. And call me if you need anything. Even if it's just to hear a human voice. Ruth's eyes burned. She locked the door, She leaned back against it, breathing hard. Then she slid down slowly to the floor. The room was quiet, too quiet, and that was when the truth hit her in a different way. Not the headlines, not Kelvin, not Linda, not Victor. Another truth, one she didn't want. She was starting to fall for Ben, not because he was rich, but because he was safe. Because he didn't use her fear to control her. Because he gave her dignity, even when she was broken. Ruth pressed her hand to her chest, and that scared her more than Kelvin's threats. Because how do you protect your heart when the person you're falling for is the reason danger found you in the first place? Ruth was still on the floor by the hotel door when her phone buzzed. She wiped her face quickly and stood up, trying to look normal, even though her eyes were swollen. Another buzz. A message from Ben. "Someone will come to check on you, please don't panic." Ruth's heart beat faster. A few minutes later there was a soft knock. She hesitated, then checked the peephole. A man in a neat suit stood outside, calm and respectful, hands visible. "Madam Ruth?" he asked gently through the door. Ruth unlocked it slowly but kept the chain on. "Yes?" "My name is Caleb Daniels," he said. "I work with Mr. Ben Okoye." Ruth's stomach tightened. Caleb spoke in a low voice like someone who understood fear. "I came to warn you. This hotel is too public." Ruth swallowed. Caleb continued. "Reporters are already sniffing around. Ashton people too. They always move like flies. They pretend they are guests, staff, anybody." Ruth's hands started shaking again. Caleb noticed. He softened his tone even more. "Mr. Ben hasn't slept," he said. "He's been outside, watching, planning, worried." Ruth looked down. Caleb added quickly, "But he won't pressure you. He told me to tell you that clearly. Your space still matters." Ruth felt a twist in her chest. Because that was Ben. Even when he was suffering, he still didn't want to trap her. Ruth's voice came out small. "So what do I do?" Caleb paused. "I can't command you," he said. "But I can tell you the truth. If you stay here, you'll be found. Not because you're weak, because this place is loud." He offered her a small card. "If you choose to leave, call this number. A car will come quietly." Ruth took the card with trembling fingers. Caleb stepped back. "One more thing," he said. Ruth looked up. Caleb's eyes were serious. "Ashton is not playing. They want to break him, and they will use you to do it because you are the only soft spot they can touch." Ruth's throat tightened. Caleb nodded once, then left the hallway calmly as if nothing happened. Ruth closed the door and leaned on it. She felt torn in two. Part of her wanted to run far away from all of this. And part of her wanted to go to Ben right now, just to stop him from standing alone in the dark, like a guard dog that never rests. Ruth had barely sat down when the next knock came. This one was louder, harder. Annoyed, she checked the peephole again and her stomach dropped. Michael, her older brother. Ruth opened the door a little. "Michael, how did you—" Michael pushed past her like the room belonged to him. Ruth's eyes widened. "Michael, what are you doing?" Michael looked around the hotel room with disgust. "So this is where you're hiding," he said, "enjoying billionaire treatment." Ruth's chest tightened. "Leave," she said. Michael laughed. "Leave? Are you mad? Do you know what you've done to this family's name? Do you know what people are saying?" Ruth's eyes narrowed. "You came here for my feelings? Or you came here for money?" Michael's face changed. He stepped closer. "Listen to me. Hold that billionaire. Hold him tight. This is your chance. Don't behave like a goat with no sense." Ruth's hands clenched. Michael continued, voice rising. "You will not lose this thing. You will not spoil it for us. Do you hear me? For once in your life, do something useful." Ruth's breathing became shallow. She stared at him. And something inside her finally snapped. She pointed at him, shaking. "Useful?" Michael blinked. Ruth's voice rose, clear and angry. "Do you know what I have done for you?" Michael scoffed. Ruth stepped closer now, not afraid. I paid your school fees when you were stuck. I covered rent when you lost your job. I carried shame and silence so you could stand tall outside. I swallowed my pain and smiled at family meetings so nobody would know how tired I was. Michael's eyes shifted. Ruth's voice broke slightly, but she didn't stop. And now you come here, into my room, after I was disgraced in front of the whole world, and you are telling me to hold a billionaire? Michael opened his mouth. Ruth cut him off. No. She took a step forward. I am not your investment. Michael's face tightened. You're being stupid. Ruth laughed bitterly. No, Michael. I'm finally being free. Michael moved closer like he wanted to intimidate her. Ruth didn't flinch. If you love money more than your sister, then you don't deserve access to me. Michael hissed. So you'll throw away this blessing? Ruth's eyes flashed. Stop calling everything blessing when your heart is greedy. She grabbed her bag. Michael stared. Where are you going? Ruth's voice was firm. Somewhere I can breathe. She walked past him. Michael tried to grab her wrist. Ruth pulled away fast. Touch me again and you'll regret it, she said. Michael froze. Ruth walked out. In the lobby, Ben's vehicle was already waiting quietly like it had been watching her heart from a distance. The door opened. Ben was inside. His eyes lifted to her immediately. No pressure, no questions. Just concern. Ruth got in, shaking. Ben's voice was low. Are you okay? Ruth swallowed hard. Ben. Her voice cracked. Take me somewhere I can breathe. Ben didn't ask where. He just nodded once and told the driver, go. They drove far from noise, far from cameras, far from people who like to shout online like they knew your life. When they arrived, Ruth realized it wasn't a mansion. It was a private property hidden behind tall trees and quiet gates. Not flashy, just safe. The inside was clean, calm, warm. Ruth stepped in and something in her shoulders finally dropped. Ben stood behind her. This is one of my private places, he said softly. Only a few people know it. Ruth turned to him. His face looked tired. Not small tired. Deep tired. Like a man who hasn't rested in years and still keeps standing. Ruth's voice softened. Ben, have you slept at all? He smiled a little. Not really. Ruth's chest tightened. They sat later in the living room, quiet. No phones screaming. No people recording. Just two humans trying to breathe. Ruth stared at her hands. Why did Papa Patrick do that? She asked. The church. His confidence. The way everybody feared him. Ben exhaled slowly. Because Papa Patrick is not my father. Ruth looked up quickly. Ben met her eyes. He is my grandfather. Ruth blinked. Ben continued, voice low. He has been on my neck to settle down for years, always saying I'm too lonely, always saying work is not a wife. Ruth's lips parted slightly. Ben's eyes softened. He was supportive because he saw what happened to you, and he saw me step up, and he believed maybe God finally used my stubborn head for something good. Ruth swallowed. Ben's voice dropped even further. My mother passed away long ago. After that, I became hard. I became private. I stopped trusting love. Ruth's eyes were gentle now. Ben continued. Papa Patrick has been lonely too. He hides it with money and church donations. But I know. That day in the church, he looked happy, like he was seeing a new future. Ruth's throat tightened. She spoke softly. So you were really that lonely? Ben didn't deny it. Ruth stared at him for a long moment. Then she whispered, almost like a confession. I was lonely too. Ben's gaze held hers. The room felt warm, quiet. Their breathing slowed. Ben moved closer slowly like he was asking permission with his body. Ruth didn't pull away. Their eyes stayed locked. And then they kissed. Deep. Real. Not rushed. Not hungry. Just two people choosing each other for one small moment in a world that kept trying to tear them apart. Then beep. Ben's phone. They pulled apart sharply. Ben picked it up, eyes narrowing as he read. Ruth's stomach tightened. "What is it?" she asked. Ben's voice went cold. "It's a message." He turned the screen to her. "We know where you are." Ruth's heart sank. Almost immediately, the lights outside shifted. Movement. Footsteps. Not casual footsteps. Purposeful. Skilled. Ben stood up fast. He made a call. His voice turned sharp and controlled. "Lock everything." Ruth stood too, fear rising. "Ben." He looked at her. "Stay behind me." Before she could reply, a loud hit on the gate. Then another. Then silence. Then the sound of something being bypassed. A door alarm beeped. Then died. Men entered. 3 of them. Dark clothes. No jokes. No shouting. Just cold eyes. The leader spoke like someone delivering groceries. "Mr. Okoye." Ben's voice stayed calm. "What do you want?" The man smiled slightly. "An ultimatum." Ben didn't move. The man continued. "You will sell your shares. Step down quietly." Ruth's hands clenched. Ben's eyes didn't blink. "And if I refuse?" The man shrugged. "Then we expose secrets. We ruin you publicly. We scatter your name. We make sure your board eats you alive." Ruth stepped forward suddenly, eyes blazing. "Are you not ashamed?" The men looked at her like she was noise. Ruth didn't care. "You people are criminals," she said. "You break into a home and talk about shares like you're buying bread." The leader laughed softly. "You should calm down, madam. You're the reason we found him." Ruth's chest rose. She stepped forward more, voice strong. "If you think fear will make us bend, you don't know Nigerians. We survive worse than you." Ben glanced at her briefly, surprised, proud, and worried all at once. The leader's smile faded. He stared at Ben. "You have until tomorrow." Then he turned. The men retreated smoothly, like shadows. They disappeared into the night. And Ruth stood there, breathing hard. Ben exhaled slowly. "It's open war now," Ruth whispered. Ben looked at her. "Yes," he said. Then he added quietly, "But you just proved you can stand in it with me." The next morning, Ben was already dressed before sunrise. Not in cleaner clothes, not in simple wear. This time, he wore the real him. Quiet power, clean suit, calm face. Ruth watched him from the doorway. "Are you going to fight them alone?" she asked. Ben looked at her. "No." He walked to her and held her hands. "This is the final move." Ben entered the Okoye Holdings boardroom like a man who had been underestimated for too long. The room was filled. Some faces were loyal. Some were nervous. Some were waiting to see if he would finally fall. Ben didn't even sit down at first. He placed a flash drive on the table, and he spoke one sentence. "Before anyone talks about stepping down, you will watch this." Screens came on, and the evidence started rolling. Calls, messages, bank transfers, screenshots of threats, video clips of stalking, proof of hacking attempts, proof of bribery, and then the biggest money laundering trails connected back to Ashton Group. The room shifted. Murmurs turned into panic. One board member stood up. "This is..." Ben cut in calmly. "This is Ashton Group's game." He turned slightly. "And I have a witness." The doors opened. Victor Ajayi walked in. Not polished like before. This Victor looked like a man whose lies finally caught him. Ruth was not in the boardroom, but she was watching through a secure feed from the safe house. Her hands trembled as Victor appeared. Victor swallowed hard, then spoke into the microphones. "Kelvin Ajayi ordered me to abandon Ruth Okoye at the altar." The room exploded. Victor continued, voice cracking. "He wanted Ben Okoye exposed. He said Ben would step out if Ruth was disgraced publicly." Victor wiped his face. "Linda Ajayi pushed it. She monitored everything. She kept calling me, checking if the humiliation was complete." Ruth's eyes filled with tears, but this time it was not shame. This time it was relief. Truth. Finally. Linda tried to act strong at first, but the evidence didn't allow acting. Her name was all over the messages. Her instructions. Her monitoring. Her threats. The public turned on her fast. And Linda, The classy, dangerous girl who liked control became a disgrace in the same spotlight she used on others. Kelvin tried to run, but money laundering leaves footprints. The authorities moved. Accounts froze. Partners withdrew. Media poured in. And when the arrest finally happened, it was not a gentle fall. It was a public collapse. Not because Ben begged anyone, but because Kelvin built his empire on dirt. And dirt eventually smells. When the storm settled, Ben took Ruth somewhere new, a mansion, not for display, for family. Ruth's heart beat hard as they entered. And there he was, Papa Patrick again. Standing tall, Bible in hand, but smiling this time like a man who could finally breathe. He opened his arms. "My daughter," he said warmly. Ruth froze, emotional. Ben guided her forward gently. Papa Patrick held her hands. "I only wanted happiness for my son," he said. "He has been lonely since his mother passed. Work became his wife. Silence became his friend." He looked at Ben with soft eyes. "But that day in church, I saw light enter his face again." Ruth swallowed. Then the real meeting happened. Ben's father arrived. A rich man with presence. Not loud, not playful, just solid. He looked at Ruth for a long moment, then looked at Ben. "I heard everything," he said. Ben nodded respectfully. His father sighed. "I won't lie. Ben's hiding life came from pressure and betrayal. People used him. People tried to break him. So he disappeared." He looked at Ruth again. "But I can see something in your eyes. You're not here for noise." Ruth's voice was calm. "I didn't marry him for money," she said. "I married him because he refused to let me be destroyed in public." Ben's father nodded slowly. Then he said, "Welcome." Ruth's eyes burned. That night, Ben and Ruth sat outside under quiet lights, the kind that don't scream, just glow. Ben looked at Ruth seriously. "Now you know everything." Ruth's heart beat fast. Ben spoke softly. "I won't trap you." He held her hand. "You can divorce and walk away. You can leave and rebuild alone. Or," he paused, "or you can stay, and we build something real, not drama, not control, real." Ruth stared at him for a long time. Then she smiled, small, tired, but true. "I've been controlled before," she said. "I've been used before." Ben's eyes softened. Ruth continued, "But you..." She shook her head gently. "You protected me without holding me hostage." Ben swallowed. Ruth squeezed his hand. "So I'm staying." Ben's breath released like a man who had been holding it for months. Ruth added, "Not because you're Ben Okoye." Ben looked at her. Ruth smiled. "I'm staying because you're the man who stepped forward when the whole church stood there filming my pain." Ben's eyes shone. He leaned in and kissed her, this time on the lips, slow and respectful, like a promise. And for the first time since the wedding day, Ruth didn't feel like an abandoned bride. She felt chosen. Not by noise, not by money, by love that showed up when it mattered. The threats ended. The war finished. And their new life began quietly, the best way a real life starts.